right, here's how you can do an assessment in the GLAM system and then feed it into the early warning crop monitor. This example is for Uganda. When you load the GLAM system using the older portal, not the portal that ends in Zoom 2, you usually land at this page, and by default the regions for Tanzania are selected. However, today we want to do an assessment for a region in Uganda, and we will begin by looking at, let's do an assessment for the Karamoja region, and the crop that we're looking at is sorghum, which is currently in season. Today is July 27th, and the sorghum season typically peaks June, July, August. Therefore, when you land here, you can go and select the 16-day data, which just means that a lot more satellite images are included in your assessment rather than just the 8-day data, which includes fewer images and usually has more clouds. As you can see, a lot of the gray areas typically mean that there are clouds. So you change this to 16-day, the system automatically reloads, and you can see that we have a lot more data for the broader East Africa, and that's why the preference is for use the 16-day data. Secondly, you want to make sure that the date is correct to use the most recent image. And the current one ends July 11th. There should be a new image coming up for the end of July in a few days that we can use. And so for purposes of today, we'll use up to July 11th. You can choose to see an anomaly image, which just tells you the current image versus the average for that particular area. You keep the water mask. You don't necessarily need to choose a crop mask because a lot of the data that we have is sort of backtracked. You could use the cropland mask for Karamoja in this particular sense if you wanted to. And if you want to see the changes, you can update and see what happens. Okay, as you can see, the crop mask only shows data for crops for the Karamoja region. All right, so I wanted to zoom into Karamoja subregion. Okay, so I selected it down here. You can see this points it's zoomed to. And then the next step is to activate the polygons that you want to choose. So you could deselect Tanzania regions and then select Uganda districts. And if you don't know the names of the districts, you might add a label and you can update that. Okay, so right now it's zoomed into a beam. You can see all the district names are there and it's very, very crowded. So perhaps you switch off the district names and then also deselect the crop mask and keep all the data, which covers all the vegetation, and then you update. Okay, so this is what the anomaly image, as you can see, looks like. The brown areas are below average, and the green areas, the white areas are average, and the green areas are slightly above average. You can see that most of western, central Uganda is below average. But one thing to keep in mind is that the growing season just ended. This is the March, April, May season. Harvest, rain season, harvests happen in July. So the ground is pretty bare, and that's sort of normal. ish, but it's still, in terms of when looking at pasture, it is below average. So right now the district that's selected is a beam, and you can scroll down to the time series data. Here it shows you the anomaly zoomed into a beam. This is a beam region, and it shows you where a beam fares compared to the long-term average. Some useful things that you can do to see this graph better are: first, you can let the year start in January. Second, you can select to see the mean and standard deviation. Okay, and then you can update the graphs. All right, and then you can see where the current falls from the long term. So from this, it appears that the red dot is 2016 July. It appears that a BIM is slightly above average. However, it's not so great considering when we look at this image. You can see that part of the southern part of the district is pretty poor. And so for purposes of the crop monitor, we can keep notes, for example, so we don't have to go back and forth. And we can say that a beam is watch conditions poor to the southwestern parts of the district, for example. And then we save district. Okay. And then we can look at all the other districts for that are located in Karamoja region. Okay. So next I will click in, you can click in the map itself. I can click right here, which is Kabong district, which is also located in Karamoja. Okay. And Kabong just loaded. As you can see, it is way below average. The purple represents average, the red represents 2017, and you can see that it's almost one standard deviation below the long-term mean. And you can see from the graphic itself that a good chunk of the district is below average. So just to show you what the crop mask does, if I went back and added a crop mask just to show the agriculture data, you can see that agriculture is concentrated around here. And within agriculture areas, it's very close to the mean. That's really what the big difference is. But you can see that it's been very poor. It was very poor all the way April, May, June, July, and it has improved a little bit. But when you look at the general area, because we're also interested in pasture, if I go back and remove the crop mask, the crop mask really just means that whatever data you're looking at is only looking at crop conditions within the area. And you can see that the larger area is sort of very poor, which is quite a big concern because there's a lot of people who keep livestock in the district. So we can make a note of this. That Kabong is watch poor because a large chunk of the district is way below average. Okay, so the other way that I go about this is you can do both at the same time, all right? You can look at the GLAM system and make your assessments at the same time. And the crop monitor system has an additional layer which is being developed for Uganda for you to access the map. So in the settings, we can begin by, in this case, the Karamoja region. I've selected all those crops just to ease accessibility to them, and then I go to the monthly assessment form. This is what this means. Okay, and I can select sorghum, which is currently in season for the region, and as we said, a beam for my notes is watch, and then I can just copy the text from right here and paste it right here. And then the trend is that is it improving or getting worse? When we looked at simply the crop data for a beam, it appeared to be a little bit stable. So let's look at that again. I go back and select a beam. Okay, it just seems a little bit stable because it's sort of not going up or down. If we look at only crops, and updates for a beam, it's I mean, it appears that since June it's been pretty much stable around average. So we can just keep it as watch, as the something might go wrong, considering that the southern part of the district is slightly below average. All right, so I go back to Kabong, which is borderline average when you look at general conditions, when you look at only crop conditions, but when you look at general conditions, it raises some red flags because a huge chunk of the district is poor. So that is Kabong. So I said watch, and the reason is that it's dry, and I'll explain that. There's another portal that I use to generate this additional information about rainfall conditions, but also there is sometimes you have information from the field or information from officers who work in the region. Okay, and then you submit. The next one I just did was Kabong. We said the condition is poor, and according to this graph, it looks like it's not improving. It's actually getting worse compared to what conditions were in June. Excuse me. So the trend is it's getting worse, and it's because it's dry, and there was a delayed onset of rains, of course, this season. So the next district on this list is Amudat, which we haven't done yet. As you see, it has a red cross. Green tick means that we've done it. Amudat district is the one that's all the way down here. Okay, and conditions in Amudat appear to be poor and worsening. Okay, poor and worsening. Okay, it's dry and delayed onset. Sometimes there might be diseases going on in the region as well. The next district is Cotido. You can see the shape from here. The same exact shape here. So I can click on Cotido. And Cotido is it's poor compared to the average. It's below average. However, it's a little bit stable since June. Not much has changed, but it appears a huge chunk of Cotido is way below average, and a lot of this is just pastoral pasture areas rather than sorghum. So if we did an assessment for crops, since we're looking at sorghum, it could be watch, and then it would be watch. So let me select crops only. It's still poor when you look at just crops. It's still below average, and but it appears as if it's improving for cropped areas. So this is poor. The trend is we could just stay stable for in between the crops and then submit. We have Moroto district. We go back up here. I'm going to turn the crop mask off. None. Okay, and then select Moroto. According to the graph data, it is terrible in Moroto. You can see a huge chunk, but these are pastoral areas that are poor. Moroto is poor and it is worsening. Moroto is poor. It's worsening. It's because it's been dry. There's some delayed planting, and you can investigate whether there have been any serious disease outbreaks in the region, in that particular district. The next is Nakapiripirit, which I believe is this district right here. Yep, and condition is poor and worsening. Poor trend worsening. We can say that this is due to the fact that it's dry, okay? And then Napak district, which is the one right next to Moroto. Huge chunk of it is very poor, the chunk closest to Moroto, but this is all mostly grass rather than crop. If I add in the crop mask, and update, you can see that it's very poor. This part right here, and then at the beginning of Napak is also fairly poor, and it's not improving. It's poor, and the trend is that it is worsening. It's because it's dry. And then you can submit. So the assessments for the Karamoja region are done, and you can look at them if you go to the archive. You can see the ones that I've just completed. Today's the 27th. And only a beam is watch, and I put in a comment for a BIM. So it's important to always keep track of, you know, what district is probably the worst. It's from what the assessment that I did here, it appeared that Moroto was really, really poor. We can look at Moroto again, which is right here. So you can click in the district, or you can select a district from the list. If I turn the crop mask off, Moroto, you can see that large areas within Moroto district are poor, and you can add that to your notes right here. Conditions in all other districts are poor, particularly in the pasture areas. Okay, and then this could be your text for Karamoja, the Karamoja region. In Abim, conditions are under watch, and have remained stable throughout July, say June, July, considering that it's the same as last month almost. However, I'll make this bigger so you can see. However, conditions are poor of the district in the sub-region. That's it. And that's your assessment for Karamoja. Okay, so the idea is that you do this for all the districts in the country, but it's important to know what crop is in season where. Okay, and this is the task. So sorghum is in season in the Karamoja region. You need to know what crops are in season in West Nile, and what crops would be in season in the Southwest, and perhaps in Central, and then go on and do that assessment for those individual regions. So in order to make it easier to do the assessment, you can always go back to your settings and remove the region you're done with, and then move on to the next region so that it only shows those districts. So you can go to Western and then begin your monthly assessment. You can select, so in Western region, probably right now, bananas might be in season, and this is something that we need to verify, and then you can do the assessment for all the districts. You can see this region is pretty big, it has many districts. You have to go to the next window to finish the rest of the district. Masindi and Toroko are on list number 2. Okay, so you do the same thing. You begin with Bulisa. You can just look for it from this list here. It's right here. And the GLAM system would jump directly to that district, give you a zoom in version. It's right here, give you a zoom in version of that district and where that district lies in terms of conditions. Okay, and then this is below average. Conditions are poor, as you can see, for a large chunk of the district. And you go ahead and select poor, stable, and submit. Okay, that's pretty much it.